I'd like to extend a warm welcome to you all for the first of an exciting series, Women in Games Meet the Winners webinars, celebrating the achievements of women and organizations working in the games industry from all over the world has been a long-standing priority for Women in Games. These webinars give our winners an opportunity beyond the awards ceremony to talk about their work and how they feel about being commemorated within the sector. We are also featuring the studios who support us in bringing these awards to you. The success of last year's awards has encouraged us to consider and further develop and design our awards to fully recognize the extraordinary talent of those within the gaming and esports sector. After extensive consultation with our community, we are absolutely delighted to be adding some exciting new award categories for 2021. David Smith, our founder, is the Executive Awards producer, and he and I have worked closely together to develop and design this year's amazing awards. Full details of all the planned awards will be announced on the 3rd of June when the Women in Games Global Awards 2021 will go live. Please check our website for those details. Women in Games will announce the winners of this year's awards as part of its new Women in Games Festival, taking place across the first full week of September. David will introduce those new additions at the end of this webinar. Now, it gives me great pleasure to hand over to our wonderful host and highly valued advisory board member, the brilliant Elizabeth Sampat, and our wonderful award winners. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi, Marie-Claire. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you to Women in Games in general for giving me the opportunity to have this conversation with three incredibly remarkable women. But before we get started with our award winners, there's one other remarkable woman that I need to introduce, which is Harinda Sangha from Sumo Digital, one of our sponsors.
Hi. Hi.
Always a pleasure.
Always. Oh. So, you know, from us as the sponsor for the awards, we're really proud to be able to support such an organisation like Women in Games. It's something very close to our hearts. You know, so I sit alongside you as an advisory board member, and it's a great organisation, and a lot of the values for Women in Games, they really align with who we would like to be and what we would like to continue doing. You know, we believe in equality. We believe in inclusivity. It's not just a buzzword for the time being. It's not a tick box. You know, it really is about creating a place of belonging for everyone to really enjoy. And this is a great game. This is a great industry to be part of. And you know, we're great to be. We're greatly. You know, we feel really. God, these are my words now. You know, we feel grateful that we're able to sponsor such awards. So I am looking forward to hearing from all the amazing women that you have with you today, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much. And I know you said your words were failing you, but honestly, I couldn't have said it better myself. So thank you so much for being here. And thank you to Sumo for sponsoring the awards, because it's really remarkable to get a chance to celebrate women who have done so many cool things.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So at this point, I think I would like to introduce our speakers, who are also our 2020 Hall of Fame award winners. First of all, we have Audrey Le Prince. She's the co-founder of the independent game studio, The Game Bakers, who are behind games like the very recent Haven or Fury. She started as a game designer and a producer for Quantic Dream and Ubisoft on AAA games over 20 years ago. Audrey also founded the Women in Games France in 2017 and co-founded Wings Interactive in 2019, a fund focusing on funding games by women and marginalized gender developers. She is also a board member of the French Video Game Trade Association. Welcome, Audrey.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Next up, we have Sadara Shepta. She's the studio director at No Breaks Games, the developer of Human Fall Flat. She set up the Tenerife studio in January 2019, where she's currently working on the next unannounced title with a 16-person strong team that's still growing. She also forms part of the POC and Play team, where they raise awareness to increase visibility and representation of people of color in the video games industry. During her 10-year career, she has contributed to a number of studios from AAA to indie, working on titles including Little Big Planet 3, Snake Pass, and Need for Speed Most Wanted, among many others. Welcome, Sitara.
Hey, lovely to hear from you, and thanks for having me here.
And last, but certainly not least, we have Christina Myers, who works for the EdTech Hub. It's a global initiative that creates evidence for policy and decision-making related to technologies for education, better known as EdTech. Christina has a PhD in gaming and gender studies and has also worked for the United Nations, mostly on education and gender, and co-founded an NGO that aims at amplifying the work of local leaders. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and hello to everyone.
It is, before we get started, I know I've said this to each of you individually, but I just want to say again, you are incredibly remarkable women. The work that you've done is just phenomenal, and I'm so excited to get to speak to all of you today. Before we get into some general conversation and questions, I'd love to dig in just a little bit more to each of your backgrounds. Beginning with Audrey. So Audrey, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your journey from producer to studio founder to CEO of a fund that supports development of games by diverse teams. You've had such a remarkable upward trajectory, and to end up at a place where you're both making games and helping other marginalized people make games is really remarkable. So I'm curious, when did you know that that was what you wanted to do, and how did you get there?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a lot of surprises along the way and a lot of discoveries, actually. So I was lucky to start with Quantic Dream and Ubisoft. So I kind of were, at the time, 20 years ago, I was probably with the people who had given the most thoughts on how to make game in an efficient and creative way, and I learned a lot from them. And it also fueled my will to do more, and especially to take more risks, but also to be more independent. So this is why I started my game studio 10 years ago, the Game Bakers, with my partner, Emmerich Toa, the co-founder of the studio. And we were happily making independent games, and it was great. There's been Fury, and last year there's been Haven, but I felt I was at the place where I had now enough expertise, enough confidence, enough solidity to be able to spend time helping others. And this is when I started Women in Games France. I kind of stole a good name there. I don't know what you think. And then after a few years of doing, this kind of work, like training, workshops, incubators, and all of those great things that we did, like for free with volunteers, working in the night and the weekends, and asking women to work with us in the night and the weekend. I was like, maybe it's time to do something even different. And it came to me that what women, two things, I think. One was that I was tired of always asking women to do more or change or improve. And two, I thought some of them just needed some money and some trust. And this is why I started the Wings Fund. And as you say, I'm running it in parallel to the Game Bakers and to Women in Games France. And I think this is one of the great things of the industry, that we can do so many things at the same time.
I think one thing that's particularly remarkable about your trajectory is that I find, particularly with Women in Games initiatives, that a lot of it, while being very useful and very necessary, and something that the people involved have a lot of passion for, at the end of the day, it is often just asking women to do more unpaid work to help women. So the fact that you have created a fund to actually literally fund women to be a part of the industry and make the things they want is just such a wonderful step.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like a natural continuation. And let's hope that we can help many, many women. For now, we've helped 8 teams. We're still looking for more teams to help and support. So everybody's welcome to send a pitch.
You say that, but I bet your inbox is going to be pretty full tomorrow.
I hope so.
Thank you so much, Audrey. Christina, you've had such remarkable success with the work that you've done in the United Nations, with the Omnis Institute and the EdTech Hub. Sorry. And you've had huge impact across borders and socioeconomic groups. I'm really curious how that global work has impacted your views on diversity in our industry and on our industry's efforts to diversify. Are we focusing in the right place? Is there anything we're overlooking right now?
Thank you, Elizabeth. And it's not easy to go just after Audrey and all her successes and accomplishments. But yeah, you know, my journey to gaming is slightly different. For me, I wasn't really a gamer, or I wasn't really into games up until maybe 5 or 6 years ago, when I really started to see the potential of games to improve online education. I really saw it, like its potential, you know, to make online education more engaging, to give more agency to players and to learners, to make it more fun, to make it more interactive, etc., for many, many reasons. And I decided to do a PhD, so to really explore this topic and to understand better how we could use online education and make it more impactful, especially to people who don't have access to education. And quite frankly, the first challenge that I faced was that I understood that to have impactful games for education or even for play, you needed to have more diverse teams. So people who would like create those games needed to be coming from more diverse backgrounds. So more women, more people of color, more people of disability, etc. Because usually in games, the voices and the stories and the experiences of designers are directly reflected in the games they create. So for me, it was a little bit, to answer to your question, it was something that I had in the back of my mind, but that I saw such a big challenge in game as well, again. But so what I did was that I created a platform for anyone, so people who wouldn't have any kind of technical background or even knowledge on game, for them to show up and in 2 days to have games. And what I found out is that I organized many events where anyone could show up and design games in 2 days. So for the ones who know, they're usually called game jams. And what I found is that at my event, most people who would come were from diverse backgrounds. So it's not about, you know, not having, you know, it's really about giving us like voice and giving us a platform where our voice can be included. So, and this is something that I was seeing in my work outside as well. I felt that very often some initiatives are about optics, and that bringing people in to really like and give them agency is slightly different and it's a little bit more complex. But yeah, so that's, I hope I answered your question.
You did. And I just want to follow up on that last bit. I know that I've talked to a lot of organizers who sort of struggle with creating things that are actively welcoming to diverse backgrounds and not just looking for optics, but particularly for organizers who aren't of those marginalized backgrounds. They're not always entirely sure how to go from making their events open to everyone to actively welcoming of everyone. Do you have any like one quick tip that you think these organizers might really be able to benefit from?
Yeah, for sure. It would be to ask those people from diverse background to come into the organization and to let them say how those events should be organized. I think it comes down to the same principle. The more agency we give to people from diverse backgrounds, to women, etc., the more you'll see the results to that. And obviously, giving this agency can require more work and can be sometimes more expensive. But if really we want diversity in those in games or in those events, this is what is needed.
Very well said. Sadara, I think that your position as head of studio is really unique because we're in an industry where the vast majority of women who reach sort of the higher echelons of studio leadership kind of have to found their own companies in order to get there. What's really remarkable to me about your background is that you've navigated really big companies and really small companies to sort of get where you are within the system. I'm really curious to know more about that process and sort of how you got to where you are right now.
Sure. Well, first of all, I just want to say really nice to listen to Christina and Audrey as well. Really inspiring. I guess for me, yeah, I started my career, gosh, yeah, like you said, I think about 10 years ago. First of all, as a graduate producer, and then over the years worked hard to kind of develop and learn more and progress my career, and eventually reaching head of production and then moving over to join No Breaks, where I am now as head of studio. I think obviously I've worked at a mixture of AAA and indie studios, as you mentioned, and that provided me with a real opportunity to explore different ways that you can make games with a whole host of different people as well. And I've learned to make games in really good ways, and I've learned to make games in not so good ways too. And I've always wanted to really run a studio to make great games and prove that it can be done in the right way. So that's always been something that's quite important for me, that if I'm, leading a team, we should be working together as a team, but we should all really be bought into what we're doing and believe that we have a good culture and we're building a good culture together, and that we're making games in a way where everybody's happy and everybody's valued, and also we're achieving great things, because I genuinely believe you get the best out of people when people are happy, when you treat them well and when you respect them. I'm fortunate, I think, that I'm at a stage in my career where I can also be picky with who I align myself with. So I make sure to align myself and surround myself with good people, people who support women, people who support people from different backgrounds as well. And the truth is, there have been glass ceilings for me throughout my career, and but I think on a personal level, that just made me more determined to shatter them, because they shouldn't exist. There should be no barriers for people from different backgrounds, whether you're a woman, whether you're someone from a minority background. Those glass ceilings should not exist. So, it's hard, but I'm quite fortunate in a way, like I say, that I've managed to surround myself with people who don't, in the best way possible, don't care that I'm a woman, that they look at me for kind of what I can bring to a studio, where I can add value. And that's ultimately how I ended up becoming head of studio at No Breaks Games.
That's wonderful. And it's clear that you definitely have a ton of value to offer. And it's just lovely listening to you talk. I am curious. I'm sure that my experience is probably something that you've also felt, which is that sort of the higher up you go, the harder it is to find women who are peers or mentors. And so for any marginalized people and who are perhaps watching this, who are maybe moving into their first management position, or looking to move into management, do you have any hard-won wisdom to offer them?
Good question. The one thing I would say is just be yourself, be true to yourself. I think it can be very easy to kind of learn from other people around you, but don't try to become somebody that you're not. Is the thing I would say. You can add value as who you are. So, the fact that maybe you are a woman, and maybe you're one of the few women at a studio who happens to be in a leadership position or is moving to a leadership position. Maybe you are from a minority background. My ethnicity, I'm Pakistani, and I've also not worked with a lot of other Pakistani people, if in fact maybe not any, but that's I've never allowed myself to make that barrier for myself. Even if other people have tried, it's never been something that I'm allowed to be a barrier for myself. I'm true to who I am, and I need to, and a thing I'd say to people is that you're bringing different perspectives from being in those backgrounds. You're opening up the games that you make to people who are from more diverse backgrounds too. You're bringing in different perspectives to those teams as well, and you're making people think in different ways, and that's a fantastic thing. So always be true to yourself.
Those are very wise words. Now I kind of want to open up my questions to all three of you. You know, in doing the research for this session, I was really interested in the things that sort of the common threads in all of your careers and what you've been passionate about. And one thing that came up particularly, or that really came up first to me, is looking at the work that Audrey's doing with Wings and Christina has been doing with education, and Sadara has been doing with POC and play, about this idea of education and mentorship, sort of intertwined with using that to diversify the industry. So my question for all of you is, what role do you see mentorship playing in diversifying our industry? What tips do you have for people who are considering becoming a mentor but worried that they aren't at a place in their career to be useful? And also, if you have any tips for people who are looking how to sort of position themselves to be an ideal mentee, because it can be really difficult to find somebody who's willing to go to bat for you in that way.
Okay, we all have something to say. We just don't know who we should start. I think mentors and mentees are super important, and in general role models also. And this is why a lot of what we do with my organization is to show that women and people of color or people from marginalized groups have made it and have been successful in this industry. This is so inspiring, and I think for many of the younger persons among us. And for the mentors, I would say, if you doubt you're senior enough to be a mentor, you are always senior, more senior than someone else. You're always going to be useful. You're always going to have some good advice, so don't hesitate to go there. And for the mentees, I think we are very lucky that our industry is so open and so ready to share and give and spend time freely to help others, that you shouldn't hesitate. Just go for the person you love the most, you admire the most, and try. and you might be surprised, she might say yes.
I think also something to add, I think at least for me, and I know some people could potentially relate to that, but I don't think I would be where I am today in my career if it wasn't for a woman opening a door to me. And I think it's not only opening a door as of, hey, Christina, here's a job for you, but it's someone who like truly believed in me in moments where I wasn't believing in myself. And I think sometimes it's very useful to reflect on that and to try to give back to someone else who is in that position at some time. And I think for me, it's very important for me to remember when I was in that position, how much impact having, another woman really believing in me and telling me that I could do what I thought I wouldn't be able to do really helped. I think other than that, I had an amazing mentor, and I remember she was constantly telling me that her number one skill was to be able to listen to what people really want. And I think that sometimes when we think about this mentee-mentor relationship, we think that it's going to be the mentor giving all the advice and just giving all the wisdom, whereas sometimes it's the other way around. And that a good mentor also is able to listen, to learn from a mentee, and to really see how he or she can open doors and really amplify what they're capable of. I think there is a lot, at least for me, if I'm being honest, I have the imposter syndrome quite often. And I feel that, and I doubt myself quite often, even like if I'm like in a job where I am at the moment, but sometimes I doubt myself. And having, I think, this community of women, especially, who can relate to that and really like give me confidence and remind me that I can do what I want to do is incredibly useful. So my point here is that mentors and mentees are incredibly important, but also having a community where you can really be open about your doubts and your lack of confidence or your dreams is extremely important as well.
For me, I guess it's similar, like mentorship. At least why I like being a mentor is because it's the same reason I do my job, I think. I like playing games, but I love making games. And the reason I love making games is because I'm happy when other people are happy. So, when you see people play games, that's something that's really cool because they hopefully get happy and excited because they're having fun. And it's a similar thing, I guess, with the mentorship thing as well. For me, personally, I see value in helping other people. And it's, I suppose, one thing for me is I never had a mentor, and I wish I did. So the only way that we change that is actually by taking action ourselves. So that's one of the reasons why I think mentorship is super important, because sure, when I was younger, I wish there was somebody who looked like me who I could talk to about making games, and seeing that this was actually just a career opportunity in itself. At least, that from my background, the thing that you taught to grow up and be is like a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher. And actually making games, when I said I was going to make games, that was something that was super scary to all of my family and friends, because that's not a career option, but of course we all know it is. And I think that's changing, but the only way it continues to change is by actually people putting themselves out there and saying, hey, I'm a person that does this, come and talk to me, I can share my experience, I can share my knowledge. But one of the great things about being mentor as well is you actually learn from the mentee too. I think it ends up becoming a little bit of a two-way relationship because they end up sharing their experiences and you talk to them about it and it might be like, oh, that's something I didn't think about before. And that's kind of cool, to be constantly learning. And what I'd say to people, about being a good mentee and actually being a good mentor is listen to each other. The best thing you can do is listen and learn from each other, and really just absorb as much knowledge as you possibly can.
Very wise words. I think for me, mentorship is often almost selfish because it seems like the only way to get more peers who are like me. Like I really want to have more women who are at the point that I'm at in my career or higher, so that I have people to talk about what the heck I'm doing. And the number one way to get that is just to help as many women and people of marginalized genders and backgrounds get here as we possibly can. And on that note, I believe we have a video from Rebecca Sampson of Hangar 13 to talk a little bit more about their incredible support for our awards.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for this extra special webinar where we celebrate the Women in Games Award winners from the past years. I'm Rebecca Sampson, Director of Operations at Hangar 13. Diversity and inclusion is incredibly important to Hangar 13, and we continue exploring ways that we can create an environment where all employees can come to work as themselves whilst feeling empowered and having a sense of belonging. Collaborating with Women in Games for the past 3 years has been an essential partnership for the studio to help make the games industry a welcoming place for women to build their careers. It has been a privilege to be part of such a fantastic organisation and to watch Women in Games grow from strength to strength and to expand its global community, which has been more important than ever this past year. As a corporate partner, Hangar 13 is honoured to sponsor the Hall of Fame Award, which helps showcase the outstanding achievements of inspirational women within the games industry. I look forward to hearing from some of these fantastic women today and hope you all enjoy this very special event. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca and Hangar 13, for your support for these awards. If it weren't for sponsors like you, we wouldn't be having this wonderful conversation. The other big thread that I sort of noticed when I was researching all of you is that looking at all of your amazing accomplishments, the one thing you clearly have in common is your dedication to helping others, both inside and outside of our industry. Sadara, your work with refugees, Christina, your work with the UN. Again, Audrey, the fact that you're really putting money where your mouth is when it comes to supporting women in games. What do you think, where do you think that drive comes from for all of you? Is it something related to games? Is it happy coincidence? Tell me a little bit more about your drive to help people. You're all amazing. One of you talk. This is the problem, is I keep complimenting all of you, which I'm sure slightly embarrasses you and makes you feel awkward about coming on and saying, yes, I am amazing. But you should, because that's why you're here.
I can start, but I think it's a very personal question. And my story, I realized when I talked with a younger feminist person than me, then when I told them my stories, they raised their eyebrows at the beginning, because it's a bit sad that I really decided to become active when I had my daughter, and when I saw her in this world that was sexist. And I had not realized it so much before, because I was like just working. I'm going to be as good as anyone else. I don't mind. I'm going to make games. I don't mind. I'm in a world where only there are men only in my studio, especially 20 years ago. But I don't mind. And then seeing her grow and made me just realize like how sexist the word was, as if I could have not seen it before. And I think many of us, maybe not around this table, but outside, the ones who are not watching women in games, have not realized yet that the word is sexist. And it's at the same time sad, but it also fills me with hope for the future, because when they realize it, they're going to go, man, we've got to change that. And can't wait for that.
We're too polite here. We're waiting for each other. For me, it's probably is a personal one as well. I mean, I think I've always tried to help others. It's just something I've always done as part of my family, since that's how I was brought up. So it's my parents' fault. is a nice way of putting it. We've always tried to participate in charity events, things like that. But there was, I guess, the kind of bigger work started when I was watching the news one night. I was seeing the refugee boats come in from Turkey to Greece, and I am incredibly frustrated, even still today, at the lack of a response from the world leaders, that not enough is done, and that people are suffering for no good reason, and there's not enough people to help. And me and my sister, we just kind of got fed up, and we were supposed to be going on holiday, and we just booked our flights to Greece, and we decided to go and try and help out at some of the refugee camps. And that's kind of where our journey started, because for me, it's just, it could be us one day. It could be any of us one day that need help. And if there's no one there to help you, then what happens? So, I always just try and put myself in someone else's shoes. And if you have the ability to help someone, I believe you should. And the only way the world changes is if people take action.
Yeah, I think if I could, I would say the exact same thing. No, but for me, it's also a personal story. It's definitely not a happy story, so I'm not going to share it. But for me, also, I grew up in Colombia, and going back and also in Switzerland later on. And for me, when I was in Colombia, people would tell me, "Oh, you go back to Switzerland, and it's so much better there." And when I was in Switzerland, people were telling me, oh, you know, you're so lucky to be here in Switzerland and not in Colombia. And it's kind of like constant discrimination that I saw against Colombia, not against Latin American people, that really, first of all, really annoyed me. And then I started realizing, kind of similar to what you were saying, Audrey, that issues of discrimination are not like specific to a country. They're like completely global. So that's why also I was extremely annoyed when people were telling me, oh, you know, like Colombia is this and Colombia is that, and women in Colombia and girls in Colombia. And, you know, it's this sense of like, it's almost anger where you feel that you want, like, you can't rely on anybody else to do the changes that you want to see. So you kind of take it yourself and you think, okay, if nobody's not doing anything, I'll do it myself. So I think for me, it's mostly that is kind of constant discrimination and comments like this, and seeing even little things related to discrimination or sexism that you see in everyday life. For me, it really like builds up kind of my you know, my drive to really do something about it. And yeah, it's this also like, I think my drive is mostly that I don't see it like many people doing the things. So I'm like, okay, so I need to do it myself. And I think that's why also having communities such as Women in Game and hearing you talk is really, really inspiring, because you're constantly reminded that so many people are doing amazing things and you feel that you're also part of the same boat. So that's truly, truly amazing.
I really couldn't agree more. It's so remarkable to listen to each of you talk, and you've all done such different altruistic things, but for such similar reasons. And one of the really amazing things about being involved with games and making games is that you sort of learn to see everything as systems. And like our whole job is to build systems that work. And it's so hard to go out into the world and see systems that don't, and not try to fix them. And particularly when you're a marginalized person in our industry, you get used to both having to do things on your own and having to make the space for other people. So it's just so wonderful to see the three of you doing what you're doing, not just for women in our industry, but for the world, for people. And that's one of the reasons why you all so richly deserve the Hall of Fame awards. My last question is always something that I'm very interested to ask, particularly when you're talking about a lifetime achievement award, which is a really big kind of award. Although you're all so young to be getting that kind of a capstone thing. But I'm really curious, if you had one piece of advice for your younger self, what do you think it would be?
Okay, I can go first and not be polite this time. I think for me, it would be to be patient. You know, like, I think it takes time to build your career, to know what you want to do. And especially if you want to create social or political or economical change for people, it takes time. And I feel that we live in a world where everything is expected immediately, but sometimes, you know, it just takes time to build initiatives, to have a network, to do things that could have a sustainable change. So it would be to be patient. I remember when I was 20 or 21, I just wanted everything to happen now, but I'm happy that, you know, I took my time as well to start building things.
There we go. I nearly did that to you. For me, it's probably you'll never know everything. So don't ever think. I was certainly naive when I first joined the industry that like, oh, I'm going to learn all this stuff and then, yay, that's it, I know everything. No, you'll never know everything. Rely on the people around you, learn from the people around you, and just don't stop absorbing as much knowledge and learnings from other people as you can. I think that's a piece of advice I would give myself 10 years ago.
Well, for me, I think it's going to echo a lot of what Christina said before. Sometimes we need someone to believe in ourselves, because it's very hard. But also most of the time, I mean, quite often, the barriers are external. There are many, many external barriers, but a lot of them are internal. And when I was younger, I found they were almost impossible to pass those barriers. I wouldn't do something because I thought I couldn't do it, or I wasn't good enough, or I had been raised in this kind of system that made me doubt myself so much. And so I want to tell everyone here, you just believe in yourself, but also don't accept what's not acceptable. You're always free to change. You always can go somewhere else. There's no reason to stay in a job that you don't like, for instance, with people that are not kind to you. Just leave them and go and do your own things in your own way. Don't be scared. There's a lot of great places to be in the industry. So yeah, believe in yourself. Don't let anyone keep you down.
I really want to write, do not accept what is not acceptable onto a sticky note and put it onto my monitor. That's incredibly, incredibly good advice. At this point, I would love to encourage those of you watching us on Twitch to please ask your questions in the comments, because we'll be moving into Q&A very soon. But before we do that, we have a brief message from our sponsor, Sumo.
The brave, bold, heroic Sack Boy.
A struggle for freedom, the likes of which our world has never seen.
Oh, hello.
We're coming for you.
Thank you again, Sumo Group. If that video did not get your blood pumping, I don't know what would. Before we move into Q&A, and again, just a reminder, please put your questions in the chat. I'd like to welcome David Smith to talk a little bit about the new awards that we have coming up this year, because maybe next year you could be up here. Thank you so much, David. David, you're on mute.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And thanks to you as host, and thanks to all our guests for being suitably amazing so far. This will be brief, but it is important because we have put on this series of what will be 3 episodes of Meet the Winners webinars to celebrate the winners from 2020 and earlier. But we have the important event that we will be running these awards in this year for 2021. And this is the big reveal for our much expanded awards, where last year I think we had 7 awards. We had over 200 nominations. This year we have blown the budget, and we're going to be having 20 awards spread across 6 categories. So this is the first time that everyone can see what we will be proposing. Nominations don't start for a week until the 3rd of June, but this is the first of 2 slides on the awards. So I'm going to keep talking behind the scenes here. 4 categories. These are mostly what we've had in the past. So the Hall of Fame Awards are now within the Women in Games Lifetime Achievements Awards category, for example. We have Community Awards, Outstanding Corporate Ambassador and Outstanding Individual Ambassador, as we had last year. We now have Outstanding Women in Games Twitch Streamer of the Year. And shortly after this webinar finishes on the Women in Games Twitch, look out for Emily Evans, who another ambassador who will be streaming starting at 7:30 p.m. GMT. So some of these awards were always, I guess, open to women within gaming and esports, but we have a whole slide full of new gaming and esports awards. Most influential esports campaigner, host, shoutcaster, Twitch streamer, journalist, community group, community player, most valuable player, and then some innovation awards, favorite all-female or mixed esports league or tournament, and most inclusive esports initiative, project or structure. So we are very much looking forward to launching our awards for 2021. And this is what the timetable looks like. So as I've said, next Thursday, the 3rd of June, will be our call for entries, call for nominations. So that's the time when, if there is anyone you admire across the video games or esports categories that obviously fits into the awards that we're putting on, then you go to our dedicated awards website, which will be very public at the time, to make your nominations. You have 5 weeks up until the 11th of July to do that. Most of the esports and gaming awards will go to public vote, as the Hall of Fame Awards have done in many previous awards. So there will be a public vote on the gaming and esports categories, and the date for our award ceremony is now closing our Women in Games Festival that is taking place over 2 weeks, the 2nd and 3rd week of September. So Saturday, the 17th September, as the climax to the Women in Games Festival, where we're hoping to put on scores of events with the help of our ambassadors. The award ceremony, where we will find out all the winners, is on 17th of September. So that's the new reveal. Appreciate any comments that you, Elizabeth, and the panel have on the excitement that is going to be generated this year. But then I'm going to leave you now so that you can take all the questions that have come up from our audience. So thanks, everyone, for attending. The next webinar in this series will be in 2 weeks' time on the 10th of June. So look out for that. But I'm disappearing now. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, David. It's so exciting to see the ways in which the awards are evolving to meet like what's going on in the industry right now. Yeah, that's just really, really exciting stuff. And I do want to encourage everybody watching to make nominations when those nominations open up. I believe he said June 3rd. Let's go to our first question, which I think touches a little bit on something that we've already discussed a little, which is what advice do you have for overcoming imposter syndrome?
I have one. Every time I doubt myself, it's not very inspired. It's actually a quote from, I think, the CEO of Apple. Apple, sorry, who said something like, whenever you're not sure, just remember you're going to die. That's what I do. That's the best motivation I have. And he says, you have nothing to lose. It's all going to be lost anyway in the end. So just go for it. And actually, it looks pretty dark, right? And pretty somber. Maybe I'm breaking the mood here, but it really helped me to realize that I had nothing to lose, ever.
Really quickly, when I worked for John and Brenda Romero at a company called Loot Drop, they had a giant picture of Steve Jobs in one of the conference rooms that had that quote on it. And I looked at it every day. That's excellent advice.
I think for me, an advice that I would give is that could be, I know that sometimes it can be hard to talk about it, and it's a step that is not easy for everyone, but it would be to talk about it with people who you think might have it as well, and to try to build your community in your workplace or like somewhere else, and to try to like have this community of people who can remind you that you can achieve what you can achieve, and to have people who generally believe in you. I think seeing people around you believing in you and giving you this kind of confidence and motivational boost on a daily basis is incredibly valuable.
I think Audrey and Christina have probably covered it already, but the only thing I'd probably add is, maybe actually step back and look at what you've accomplished, and remind yourself that, you did that. So, maybe your imposter syndrome, it shouldn't be there. Like, everybody has it, I know, but it's just look at your accomplishments and look at what you've already achieved. And I guess the flip side of that is, sometimes I suffer from imposter syndrome, and I'm like, oh, should I say anything here? And then you kind of just have to think, well, what's the worst that's going to happen? What, someone might tell you no, they might tell you they disagree. And, so I think very similar to what Audrey and Christina have already touched on already.
But still, it definitely bears repeating, because I think that's really what it comes down to is you might look silly, but you should do it anyway, because there are worse things than looking silly. Another question, how have you seen the industry diversifying in your time in it? And how do you see it evolving in the future?
I don't mind starting. I think it's compared to, even if I guess if I compare it to 10 years ago when I first started in the industry, it's getting better. It's improving. Is it improving quickly enough? No, I don't think so. And I think there is more work to be done, but it is getting better. And the only way we carry on making things better is by doing stuff like this, talking about it, having open conversations, calling out when things are wrong and saying, okay, no, this needs to change and this is how it should change. And really just having those conversations. I do see it evolving. Just look at the amount of women that play games. I think the PS5 sales came out, and compared to the PS1 the other day, I saw that I think it was 48% of people that bought PS5s. It's now 48% women that own PlayStation 5s. Compare that to the PlayStation 1 stats. That's incredible. And that just shows you who's playing games, who our audience actually is. And I think that means we're going to have to hire more people from diverse backgrounds, because you have to make games that cater for these audiences. And the only way you're actually going to be able to do that is if you hire those people themselves. So yeah, it's getting better, and I think it'll continue to evolve, but it'd be nice if it was quicker.
Yeah, I don't want to add anything to that. That was perfect answer, so I don't have any insights added to that. That was just the perfect answer from start to end.
Anything from you, Audrey?
Well, I'm going to be the gloomy one again, the French. Oh my God. No, but I mean, it's true. Everything Sitara said is very inspiring and positive, but still, we're only 20% of women in the industry making the games. And I'm not talking to you about the differences in salary the glass ceiling, all of the women who leave, the turnover, right? And also, I am very worried, and it's one of the reasons why I started Women in Games, is the number of women in STEM is decreasing over the years, since the 1980s. So let's take a step back and let's change the society quickly. As Sitara said, let's do it faster.
One thing that I know came out in one of the IGDA surveys a couple of years back was that the average length of a career in games is 5 years. So, and when you think about women tending to stay in the industry less time, how short those careers may be. So before we move on to the next question, I just wanted to thank the three of you for staying, because it's giving a lot of women something to look at for what happens when you reach year 4, year 5, year 6, and you get past that hump. The next question, very germane to why we're all here, is what are your top tips for applying for awards?
I think the obvious one is not to be humble. I think like you have to really like talk about your accomplishments in a manner that is obviously like completely based on what you have achieved, but like try to really own it. And you know, it's like always this, I saw this study where men usually apply to jobs where they have 3 or 4 of the qualifications, and women would apply if they have all the qualifications. And I think sometimes we are told to be humble and to like present things that are very accurate and, you know, like very, yes, I think it comes back to like really own it and not to be too scared of even like coming across as arrogant, like just to go for it and to present things this way. I'm not saying that you should be arrogant, but like try to present it the way it is.
I agree, and it's really hard. So sometimes you have to ask your best friend to do it for you. Also ask them to all submit your name, everyone that believes in you, so that the team at the Women in Games will necessarily see your candidacy among so many, right?
What they said.
I do think that there's this tendency for women to wait around hoping that someone else will nominate them. You're allowed to nominate yourself. Like, imagine if the only way you could get a job was you were hoping someone else would apply for you. Like, just nominate yourself. It's okay. We'll look at it anyway. Trust me. Last question, as we're just 1 minute over, but I can't resist. What is the proudest achievement of your career that you can talk about?
Well,
come on,
me,
guys. We're just talking
I'm just gonna give a quick one. For me, it's every game I ship. Making a game is so much hard work. We're a small indie team of 12 people. It's so tiring, creatively exhausting, and we still do it, and we ship those games, and when people enjoy them, we are so happy. So yeah, make games.
Okay, go for it, Christina. Okay. We're doing the polite thing again, see? For me, it's probably actually setting up No Breaks Games from scratch. Obviously it was founded on the success of Human Fall Flat, but there was no studio, and I moved to a different country where I didn't know anything about the laws and learned everything here too. And the fact that I think within a year we grew to 8 people, and we'd done 3 content updates for Human Fall Flat in that first year. One of them was within the first 3 months of setting up the studio. And the funny thing is, like, we created a level with no designers. There was 2 programmers, there was a tech artist, and there was me, and we made a level for Human Fall Flat. And that's pretty cool in itself. So for me, it's definitely setting up the studio and growing the team to where we are now. And honestly, I'm just proudest of the team and what we're accomplishing at the moment.
And I'm going to say that it was probably winning this award 2 years ago. For me, you know, I was doing my PhD at the time, and a PhD is a very lonely kind of experience where you're just on your own doing your research, thinking that it's never going to impact anyone because nobody's going to read 400 pages of like boring academic language. And like seeing how everything that I had put during 3 years and a half really actually made an impact, or like, and I'm not even sure it made an impact, but seeing people telling me, oh, Christina, like this really impacted me, etc. And seeing this was truly amazing. And I think I never really realized the impact that it had on people until this award. And for me, it was a very emotional moment because it was the first time that my work was truly recognized. And I'm incredibly grateful to Women in Game and to create this community where we can all support and lift, and I'm saying lift for a good reason, each other in the industry.
I am also very grateful to Women in Games because I was able to have this amazing conversation with the three of you. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It really was an honor to get to talk to each of you. And my heart feels so full and I feel so inspired right now. If you are watching this and you can't get enough of this great Women in Games content, in about half an hour, our Women in Games ambassador, Emily Evans, is going to be streaming Dead by Daylight if you want to stick around. But thank you so much to Women in Games for hosting this. Thank you so much to our speakers. Thank you so much to the audience because you're the people that we're making this content for. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.